last time we were discussing the tshuva of the idolatrous nations of the world, and we even brought the example from the evil, wicked klipa of Paroi, King Pharaoh. He did tshuva, and it was in a way of what we call mida kineged mida, which loosely can be translated sort of as tit for tat, which basically his initial sin, at least in the story of not allowing the Jews out of Egypt, was when he said, "Me, Hashem, who is Hashem that I should listen to?" And then at the end, as the last remaining part of his army was drowning in the sea, he says, "Mi chamoicha ba'elim Hashem." Who is as mighty and like you, Hashem? No other. So it was the same word. So we see the concept of teshuva. All right. But now we're up to the next piece. We're on page Tuf Kuf Lamed Tes, which would be 539 in the Sefer Halikutim Dach of the Tzemach Tzedek, the encyclopedia of Chasidus of the Tzemach Tzedek. And we're up to subsection Yud Gimel 13 in this entry of Umot haOlam of the nations of the world. Zayin mitzvos b'nei Noach. The 7 Noachite commandments, the divine commandments for all of mankind. So we're at the bottom half of page Tuf Kuf Lamed Tes. Be'inyan es Hashem ha'emarto hayoim. With regards to that which it says in Deuteronomy, that you have chosen Hashem today. This is Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, speaking to the Jewish people, and he says, you have designated Hashem on this day. Loshoin levush purfia, hamalchus nikra levush. So allegorically speaking, this is the royal garb. Levush is a garment. Purfia is like a purple, special wool, purple, fancy royal garment. So malchus, kingship, is referred to as levush, as a garment. K'mashekasuv, as it says, Hashem malach geus lavesh, that Hashem has reigned and he wore a garb of grandeur. V'ayin mizeh, now he's going to give us some references where to look up. V'ayin mizeh babir al posuk v'chol amrei mesakoylois. So take a look in the discourse on the verse by the giving of the Torah, that all the people saw the voices. I think we did this last time.
I think we did, actually.
Yeah. We're at the very bottom of the page. Yeah, we're up to the next piece. Sorry. Okay. We did this.
Okay.
Okay, so at the very bottom, last 3 lines of the page, sorry. So continuing with Sheva Mitzvahs Bnei Noach, though. Uve'eshal Avraham, which is a Kabbalistic writing. It's a commentary on the Zohar. Ois Zayin Sif Yud Gimel. So over there he writes, Zayin Mitzvahs Bnei Noach Besoid Zayin Malchin Kadmoin is in it's the deep concept, it's the secret of the 7 early kings. Kinegdom Ayin Umos, corresponding to them, the 70 nations. Kol echad kol miyud, everyone is included, is made up of the 10. This is referring to the kings as we find them in the Chumash at the end of Parshas Vayishlach, in the book of Genesis, of Bereshis. So there we have the early kings which preceded the kings of Bnei Yisrael. These are the kings of Edom. And over there are 7. And each one of them is made up of all the 10 Sephiros. Thus we get 10 times 7, so the 70 nations. V'yoyser yesh loymar. Further, we can explain Shazel Keneged Ayin Sarim, that this actually corresponds to the 70 ministering angels in heaven. As we know, that every nation has its sar, its spiritual energy, its ministering angel. Ulefi divrei. One second, I may have made a mistake here, and it's not. Thank you. It's not the Eshel Avraham. It's a different Sefer. Give me a moment. Yeah, I'm sorry. It's the Ma'orei Or, a different Kabbalah Sefer. Okay. Uve Ma'orei Or. So what we're quoting over here, what we just said, is from a sefer called Ma'orei Or. And according to the words of the Ma'orei Or, yesh loymar, we can explain mipnei shemekabelim mizayin malchin hanal, that the reason why you have these ministering angels is actually because they are receiving their energy from the kings, these early kings. And then he's telling us another reference where to look in Likutei Torah, in the discourse, chapter 3. Okay, so we've mentioned this earlier as well, that in the book of Tehillim, traditionally, in chapter 80 of the book of Psalms, there is an unusual letter there, as we've described throughout the whole Tanakh. So there are the regular letters, 22 letters, and then, of course, the final letters, and their regular sizes. But then you have sometimes that, according to the oral tradition, we're supposed to make jumbo letters. For instance, the very first letter of the very first word of the very first verse of the entire Torah, the Beis of Bereshis, is written jumbo. It is much larger than the other letters. That's one example. Then you have some minuscule letters or tiny letters that, again, relative to the writing, they're really small. Like, for example, the first word in the book of Leviticus, Vayikra, the last letter of the first word, that Aleph of Vayikra, is traditionally made as a small letter. So those are called regular letters, and Oisias Rabasi, large, extra large, and Oisias Zira, small or extra small. But then you have over here in Tehillim, not that it's necessarily a smaller letter, but it's actually hanging. So it's small and it's kind of placed differently. And that is the letter Ayin in the word Miyoar, which means from the forest. Talking about over there, Chazir Miyoar, the swine, the pig from the forest. And in the middle of the word from forest is an Ayin, which, of course, Ayin equals 70. Shebechinas ayin hanal, that this ayin, this letter ayin that we're talking about, meir aleim b'chinas makif, shines over them, over the nations, in an all-encompassing way, not in an internal way. Be'inyan levoina. So he says, take a look over there with regards to the concept of the levina, which I believe in English would be the frankincense. So we know that in the ketores, the burnt offering, or sorry, not the burnt offering, the incense that is offered by the high priest in the Holy Temple every day. So there are 11 ingredients. And one of those ingredients is the levina. Nimtza levush zeh. So it comes out that this garment, the chitzonius hamalchus, of the external part of malchus, makif, which is drawn down through the higher level, the all-encompassing aura, the ayin tluya of this hanging ayin. Zeh levush, this garment, umastir ma'oid, is very concealing. Because as the prophet says, that the darkness will cover over the earth. Avol, however, the verse says, V'anoichi, and I, says Hashem, nitatich soyrek. I planted you as a plant with which has that white, fluffy cotton type of growth. Zayin mitzvahs. So the 7 commandments, im shuruk. Okay, it's sort of a play on the word soyrek. A shin and a sin, of course, are the same letter, and just one is got the dot on the right side, which makes it sound like an sh sound in English, and the other one has the dot on the left side, which make it sound like an s sound in English, but it's in essence the same letter. So the word in the verse is soyrek. However, the very exact same letters are shuruk, which is one of the vowels of the pronunciation of words. We know we have the vowels in the Hebrew language, which are not necessarily letters, like in, for example, in English, A, E, I, O, U are the vowels, or in Yiddish, the Aleph, Ayin, the Yud, etc. But in the Tanakh, in the Lashon HaKodesh, so the vowels are invisible. They're written in the printed versions, but in the actual parchment, one has to memorize the vowels, how to read them properly. So the first vowel would be a kamatz, which is the pronunciation of o. The second one is a patach, which the pronunciation is a. So then you have a shuruk. A shuruk is 3 diagonal dots under the letter, which are going actually from the top left down to the bottom right. So if, let's say, north would be up, so they're kind of heading from northwest to southeast, if I may say it that way. So there are 3 dots, not one under the other directly, but diagonally one under the other. So those are 3 dots. That's the shuruk. So Zayin mitzvahs, the 7 Noachite commandments, im shuruk, plus this shuruk that we're talking about over here, that the verse says that I've planted you soyrek, heim taryag, that equals 613. Vim zayin mitzvahs the Rabbanan.
How does it equal 613? I don't get it.
What's the gematria of the word soyrek? So shin is 300, reish is 200, kuf is 100, and the vav is 6. So the word soyrek would be 606 plus the 7 mitzvahs of Noach gives you 613. But we don't stop there, because once you have 613 and you add Vim Zayin mitzvahs to Rabbanon, then you add the 7 mitzvahs which are rabbinic, that we know that the Jews have 7 commandments which are rabbinic, such as Hanukkah and Purim, etc. Total of what's 613 plus 7?
620.
Ein Tarach, 620.
620.
Bechinas Keser. So that's the greatest makif. That's the all-encompassing light. Hooray!
How does 620 Bechinas Keter? Because Keter is Gematria 620.
Yes.
Okay.
So, Hooray Mamshichim Halevush Malchus Mibchinas Keser. That means to say that by doing that, we're drawing down this garment, the of Malchus, this royal garment, because it equals a total of 620. Meaning, in order to be able to access that light, that energy, the godly light, which is totally makif, all-encompassing, so we have 613 commandments for the Jews, plus the 7 Noachite commandments, plus the 7 rabbinic commandments.
That's Bechinas Keter. Okay.
Vizeo Kinyan Aniska b'Medrash Rabbah Parshas Vayikra Parsha, and then it's in the manuscript we don't have the rest of that sentence. So this is akin to what it says in the Medrash on the Parsha of Vayikra. Shehem himlichuhu al hayam. So they, at the time of Kriyas Yamsuf, at the splitting of the sea, they actually crowned and coronated Hashem as the king over all of creation by making the declaration at the end of the song. One of the last verses of the song is Hashem shall reign forever. Shehu levush malchus, that is the garment of malchus, of kingship. Mi bechinas pnimius malchus, which is coming from the innermost of this sphere of malchus. Shnasu b'nisim nifloyim, that it's precisely from that level where these amazing miracles came from. And that is how Hashem went against nature, and he transformed the sea into dry land for the Jews to be able to go across. So that has to do with the innermost of Malchus. Va'alevush zeh chokak kol oz shebatayra. And on this garment, he engraved every Oz. Now remember, the song starts off with Oz Yashir Moshe. The opening words introducing the song is Oz. Oz means then, and it's 2 letters. Aleph, the first letter, and Zayin, the 7th letter. Oz Yashir. So with this, Hashem Yimlech Lo'elam Voed, it engraves the Oz in the entire Torah. The Hainu meaning, the Aras Aleph de Anoichi, the Aleph of Oz, is the radiance and the revelation of the Aleph of the very first word, the first letter of the first word, when Hashem introduces himself, as it were, by the giving of the Torah, when he says, Anoichi, I am. Shemeir b'malchus hanikra zayin. And that Aleph of Anoichi shines into the sphere of Malchus, which is referred to as Zayin, because it's the 7th Midah. We have Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, and so on. And the 7th one is Malchus. So Oz would be the Aleph of Anoichi, coming all the way down into Malchus, which means it's the innermost of Malchus. V'zeu es Hashem hamarta hayoim levush yofe v'noeh. And this is the meaning of you have designated or chosen Hashem this day, which is referring to, as we said, the royal garb, giving him a beautiful garment, which again is connected to Malchus. So it sounds a little cryptic, but basically what we're saying is that the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach are associated with the 7 ministering angels, which is the 70 nations, which is very crucial to the number 620, because it's only with the 7 Noachide commandments plus that we can get to have 620, which is Keser, which is symbolized by the letter Aleph, which is beyond high. Keser is beyond high. It's the all-encompassing, and coming all the way down to the final of the official 10 spheres, or the 7 midos, and that is Malchus. So it's the innermost of Malchus, and Malchus is, of course, interconnected with Keser. Be that as it may, next piece is Yudalit, and that is just a reference about HaKadosh Baruch Hu Hechzer HaTorah al Kol Umot V'Lashain, where he's telling us where to look up with regards to the Midrash, that it says that before the giving of the Torah, Hashem took it to all the nations of the world and offered it to them. And of course, they all, as the story goes, they asked, what does it say? And they all rejected it. Tesvav Biruram, how the purification process of the nations of the world. And again, this is just a list of references. And now we go on to Tes Zayin, number 16. And this is pretty intense. The elevation, the advantage that happens to the Jews through the non-Jews. Normally, before we even see it inside, normally the traditional approach is that Jews are higher than non-Jews. And that's true. That's not going to change. And that the non-Jews need the Jews. Whereas the famous prophecy that the Jews are to be a light unto the nations, which means it's a responsibility that the Jewish people have. And the Jewish people have to bring the light, teach the 7 mitzvahs, that part of the Torah, for and to the nations of the world. Okay, so who is the mashpia, the giver, the influencer? The Jew. Who is the recipient? The non-Jew. That's traditionally, normally the way the system works. Similarly, when you have dark and light, normally dark is dark, and the light illuminates and changes the darkness and gives the darkness what it needs and takes away, removes the darkness. And I can give you a whole bunch of other synonymous ideas. Basically, that's the point. However, Chassidus, as we're about to see, points to that there's a certain aspect where actually the quote-unquote lower one, or even the recipient, or even the dark one, actually gives to the higher one, the light, the influencer, and the higher one benefits from the lower one. For example, in the Talmud, one of the sages makes a statement, and he says that I gained from my teachers, and more so from my colleagues, and most of all from my students, my disciples. I gained most from my disciples. Now you think, what's going on over here? If you have a relationship of a teacher-student, so you'd assume that the student is the one gaining, not the other way. And yet there is this aspect of the teacher gaining from the student. Right, so here in this case, we're going to say that Yisrael is receiving from or through the nations of the world. And we are just about out of time because I came on very late. So that was an introduction to the next piece. So hopefully we'll be able to go right into it. So first of all, we'll remember where we're up to. We're on page Tuf Kuf Mem, which is 540. And we're up to Tes Zayin. And I won't have to give that whole introduction. Maybe we'll just piece it together.
I got a little tick mark now.
Yeah, the last 5 minutes with what we're going to jump straight into it next time.
Excellent. Thank you, Rabbi Turen. I appreciate it.
Sure. Okay. Be well.
Thank you, Yossi. Be well. Be well, guys. Hey, Dovey. Be well.